there is something I've been quietly observing for a long time. Two people can stand in exactly the same place, witness exactly the same event, listen to exactly the same words, and walk away believing they experience completely different realities. And I question myself, how is that possible? Perhaps because we never experience life directly. We experience life through ourselves. Imagine looking through a window. If the glass is perfectly clean, you'd hardly notice it's there, right? You simply see the world. But if the glass becomes covered with dust, with fingerprints, with cracks, eventually you stop seeing through the window. You start seeing the window itself. The human mind is remarkably similar. Every experience you've ever had, every disappointment, every heartbreak, every success, every fear, every belief leaves a fingerprint on the glass. And after enough years, we quietly mistake the fingerprints for reality. Someone doesn't return your message. One person thinks they're probably busy. Another thinks they don't care about me. The event is identical. The experience is completely different. Why? Because one person was looking at the message, the other was looking through an old wound. Attachment works in much the same way. The more emotionally attached we become to an outcome, an identity, a belief, or even another person, the less clearly we begin to see them. Because attachment doesn't simply make us hold on, it quietly begins to edit reality. Think about the last time you desperately wanted something to work. Perhaps a relationship, perhaps a career, perhaps an investment, perhaps just a dream. Did you notice how easy it became to ignore the things that didn't fit the story you wanted to believe? We overlook warning signs. We explain away behaviour. We defend what should probably be questioned. Not because we're foolish, because attachment is persuasive. It whispers, don't look too closely. You might lose what you've become attached to. I've come to believe that attachment isn't really about the thing itself. It's about the meaning we've given it. The relationship becomes, I finally feel loved. The career becomes, I finally matter. The money becomes, I finally feel safe. And the achievement becomes, I'll finally be enough. And once something carries that much meaning, seeing it clearly becomes incredibly difficult, because we're no longer protecting the thing, we're protecting the identity attached to it. Have you ever noticed how difficult it is to change your mind about something you've publicly defended for years? Not because new evidence doesn't exist, because changing your mind can feel like losing part of yourself. Attachment hasn't quietly fused your identity with your opinion. So questioning the opinion feels like questioning who you are. What if that's why so many arguments never end? People aren't defending ideas, they're defending identities. The ancient philosophers often spoke about seeing clearly, not because they believed the world needed changing, but because they understood our perception often does. Perhaps wisdom isn't learning to see more. Perhaps it's learning to see without needing reality to agree with you. This became very real for me when I realised something uncomfortable. Sometimes I wasn't disappointed by reality. I was disappointed because reality refused to become the story I'd written in my head. And that was difficult to admit, because it meant life hadn't betrayed me, expectation had. How much suffering comes from not what happened, but from insisting it should have happened differently. Just sit with that for a moment. We spend so much of our lives trying to bend reality towards our preferences, but reality has never made that promise. It simply is. The more tightly that we grip, the more exhausted we become. Not because life is fighting us, because we're fighting life. And none of this means we stop caring. It doesn't mean we stop loving. It doesn't mean we stop building beautiful things. It simply means we stop asking them to behave exactly as we imagined. Because love without attachment is still love. Purpose without attachment is still purpose. Dreams without attachment are still dreams. The difference is they no longer own your peace. There is a strange freedom that arrives when you stop needing every outcome to validate you. You become more present, more curious, more available to life as it actually is. Not as your fears predicted, not as your hopes demanded, just as it is. Maybe clarity isn't adding another lens. Maybe it's gently cleaning the one you've been looking through all along. So today, I'd like to leave you with one question. When something upsets you, before asking, why did this happen? Try asking, what am I attached to that makes this so painful? Sometimes the answer isn't found in the world outside. Sometimes it's quietly waiting behind the glass. Next time, we'll arrive at something extraordinary, because once you begin seeing the lens, you notice something else. There is a part of you that can observe the lens. And the moment you discover that observer, everything begins to change.